The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. And even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. The first few weeks we've been talking about Psalm 23, and we've been reading and going through these amazing promises of green pastures and still waters in the midst of difficult times. And we've been holding on to this Jesus being the good shepherd, and we listen to his voice and we follow him and we know his voice and all of these incredible promises. But then Psalm 23 and verse 4 here, it starts to take a different turn. Now, it's not a hard turn, it's not a sharp turn, but David suddenly gets to the point where he says, even though I walk through the darkest valley, the shadow of death type valley. Let me paint you a little bit more of a picture of this. I've said in this, that David writes this psalm in the middle of isolation, in the middle of the wilderness, with death on the line, Saul trying to kill him. The Hebrew word here for darkest here is more than just a dark valley. This is the deepest, darkest, shadow of death-like valley. I mean pitch black. You can't see your hand in front of your face. Deepest, darkest shadow of death-like valley. This is despair and pain and difficulty to the max. This is where we find ourselves. And it says, I think you notice, hopefully you notice, it says, even though I walk. Not if I walk through the darkest. When it doesn't say, like, if I happen to put myself, even by the mess of the things that I make, of the sin of my life, and I put myself in the darkest of the valley, or when my family member gets sick, or somebody I love has this terrible, terrible passing. It's not saying if I walk through, but when, even though I walk through the valley. See, this is the plight of every human, the common reality of man amongst every people, that you do not escape pain, you do not escape the darkest valleys, you do not escape these shadow of death type experiences. This is human reality. And it is the opposite of what many people call a prosperity gospel, like Jesus is going to, when we give our lives to him, he's going to make everything easy and everything good. It doesn't say that. The right paths are not necessarily easy paths. And so even though we walk through this deepest, darkest shadow of death valley, he says, I will fear no evil. And there are a few things that are given to us, promised to us during this dark valley. And if we don't get this point, if we miss this point, we miss the point of all of it. It doesn't say, that this is what it says. It says, no matter how deep or dark or shadowy or intolerably death-like the valley is, no matter how contagious or deadly this virus, no matter how slavish the addiction, no matter how obsessive or compulsive your disorder, no matter how terminal the sickness or how grievous the breakup, no matter how painful the betrayal, or how devastating the death, no matter how awful it is, your family situation, no matter how painful the breakup or the friend destruction, no matter how low on the totem pole you are, here's the point. I will fear no evil. It doesn't say I will not feel sadness or I will not grieve horrifically. It does not say I will not suffer depression or be angry with God or struggle to believe. It doesn't even say I will not fear the possible outcome. It says I will fear no evil. And it doesn't say I won't get sick or I won't get the worst nightmare of my life happening. It doesn't say that your relationships will survive, or you won't have any significant problems, or you won't have any sicknesses, or you will not fail the test. It does not say you will not have breakups or friendships that are destroyed. It does not say that. It doesn't say you won't have to go to rehab or you won't have to suffer through these things. Again, it says, I will fear no evil. Because the reality is we all walk through some very difficult, deep, dark shadow of death like valleys. But we do not have to fear evil. So this next sentence that David says has got to be pretty powerful. It's got to be pretty stinking amazing. He says, for you are with me. For you are with me. You have not been forgotten. You have not been abandoned. And maybe you've experienced some deepest, darkest, death-like valleys, and maybe that's what you're going through right now, but maybe you've gone through it before, and if you haven't, you will. But I promise you, I have been through, and you guys know, over the past couple of years, the past few years, we have been through some deep, dark, death-like valleys. But there's one thing more powerful than fear, and that is faith. Faith in a God who does not abandon me or does not abandon you, for he is with you. He is beside you, and he is there. And it's amazing to me the faithfulness and the goodness of God when these death-like deep, dark valleys arise. When I look up, there he is beside me. And when I go through healing and I walk through these times, there is no one closer, and there is no time that the Lord Jesus is closer to me than in the deepest, darkest valley, because I can't see, and so he is there guiding me and comforting me. But if we're looking to other things, wealth, other voices, health, controlling our health, positive self-motivation, whatever, if we're looking to these other things, there's never enough in the whole wide world to bring us through these. In the moments of your life, when you look up, who is there? The Good Shepherd. Always there, always beside us, always faithful, always leading, always fighting for you. And these are the things that we're promised. This is what we are promised. These are the things that come with the Good Shepherd. It says, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. These are the two things promised in this scripture. And it says, your rod looks kind of like this, but this is a little puny thing that is not the same of what shepherds. They would have a little bit more of a club at the end here. And what this would be for is if a wolf or some kind of predator attacked the sheep, they could just smack the mess out of this thing and it would break a jaw real quick. This is for fighting. The shepherd carries this to fight for his sheep. Jesus is fighting for you in this time, not abandoning you, but he is with you. Not alone, he is with you. And the other thing the shepherd would carry with him is the staff. We've all seen this, and we've maybe even wondered what the hook's for at the end here. I tell you, the staff is for guiding his sheep. The shepherd would use this if maybe a sheep were on the cliff, on the edge of a cliff, he could reach out and ring the sheep back in. Or even if the sheep literally falls off of the cliff, the shepherd could reach down if they're on the edge, ring this staff around their neck and bring them back up to safety, literally saving them. This is what this means. It is the shepherd guiding you. It is the shepherd guiding his sheep. And you, during this deepest, darkest valley when you cannot see, he is guiding you, hooking you so that you do not go down the wrong path. Not abandoned, not alone. You see, I don't think we really understand the deepest, darkest, death-like valleys until you have been through them. And you guys know, like I said earlier, I knew cognitively when I entered ministry that there would be deep, dark valleys. I knew that these things happen, that pain happened, but I was not ready for them until you walk through them. So I appreciate this psalm because the Bible never lies to us or paints a reality that is different from our experience. This is the reality that we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, the deepest, darkest shadow of death-like valleys. But I don't have to be afraid, for he is with me, and that is my experience. What if God's purpose is not to make our lives easier, but our souls stronger? What if the right path is not to be one that is paved smooth and one that is easy to walk on? What if the right path that it talks about in verse 3 is actually through this valley that is filled with ups and downs and has rocks that we might trip over and pain and suffering, and it is dark and not easy to see? What if that is the right path? Because God's purpose is not to make our lives easier, but our souls stronger. And these are the journeys that make our souls stronger. I talked to you guys last week about how when everything was stripped away, when the realities hit, I was left with my pride. And I have been struggling through giving this pride over to Him. And that is, when everything was laid bare, that was what was left. And so I have continued this journey this week. With everything being laid bare, I also realized that there were promises that I made when I started in ministry. There were promises that I made to people that I was going to be simple, and the things that I cared about were going to be prayer and devotion to the Word. And the reality is that has not been my life recently. My life has not been that reality of devotion to prayer and reading the Word. And so that's what I've been working on this week. Actually doing the things that I promised I would do. And so that's my question to you. That's my challenge to you. To run to Jesus in this time, not run to other devices, because man, how I would turn to other devices, other things. And this is not a time to run to things like alcohol or food or pornography, inappropriate relationships, selfishness, laziness. Maybe that's what we're running to. But the reality, the truth is that when we run to Jesus, that is when we are comforted. And that's what our souls deeply desire, that refreshes us. None of these other things will ever lead to that. And so let's get back down to the simplest of things. The things we promised when we were closest to Jesus. The things that when we were at camp and we said, Jesus, this is what I really want to do, and I'm going to dedicate my life to this. The times that you were close to Jesus and you said, you know what, I'm going to pray more. I'm going to read the Bible more. I'm making these type of promises to Jesus. And when it came down to it, I realized that I was breaking those things and I was left with my pride. And so this week, that is my challenge to you, to make it the simplest of things. Go back to those camps. Look at the things that you promised Jesus. And let's start doing those things that we said we would do. We have comfort in the darkest of valleys because He is with us. He has never abandoned us. We are never alone. But we tend to lean towards other things and other devices. Let us turn to Jesus. What if we actually started doing the things that we promised we would do? That, I think, would make our souls stronger and our faith in Him bigger. I love you, One Family. Be aware of His presence. Maybe that's what He is doing, is making you aware of His presence. I love you.